Level of detail, or LOD for short, is an optimization technique used in video games. This technique is often applied to the 3D models by reducing the fidelity of distant objects and therefore improving performance. It works by creating different versions of the 3D model with different levels of detail. The highest detailed mesh, or LOD 0, would have the highest number of triangles, and we'd have less triangles with every next LOD. When the object is viewed up close, the high detailed mesh is rendered, and as it gets further away, it switches to the lower detailed meshes. On top of reducing memory usage and the number of triangles that need to be processed, LOD also reduces overdraw. When a GPU rasterizes triangles, aka turn them into pixels on the screen, it does the processing in a 2x2 grid of pixels called a quad. If the triangles are smaller than quads or even single pixels, the GPU ends up wasting a significant amount of time processing the same quad of pixels over and over. This issue is known as quad overdraw, and it usually happens when rendering high poly meshes that are far away. Older games used LODs more aggressively, making the transition between LOD meshes noticeable. However, we can now have more LOD meshes to create smooth transitions that won't affect the visual quality, but will reduce overdraw and save a lot of performance. This has been LOD in 100 seconds. And if you're now convinced LODs are cool, let's see how you can make some. You can create LOD meshes manually to ensure good topology, but the downside is it can take a lot of time. If you want to make LODs with one click for free, there's a Blender extension called LODs Maker, which you can get from the Blender Market website. Once you've downloaded the zip file, you can fire up Blender and press Ctrl, to open the preferences. Go to the Extensions tab, and from this drop-down menu, select Install from Disk. Go to Downloads and select the zip file you just downloaded. Now if you press N to open the side menu, you will see a tab for LODs Maker. Now we can bring in the mesh we want to make LODs for. I'm using the Stanford Classic Dragon model with 19,000 triangles. If we select the mesh and press this button, it'll create 5 LOD meshes, with each LOD reducing the try count by almost half. At level 5, you can see that the mesh is starting to fall apart. However, it doesn't really matter since we only see this mesh from really far away. And here's a little fun fact. If your meshes are named like this, Unity will recognize that and set up the LODs for you. So all we have to do now is to export an FBX and import it in Unity. From here, if you drag and drop it into a scene, you'll see that it has LODs. The default distance thresholds will give you a smooth transition, but I personally don't mind if the transition is a bit noticeable as long as I can minimize overdraw. And that's why I like the transition to lower poly LODs to happen sooner. And here's a little bonus trick. Duplicate one of the LOD meshes and rename it to Shadow Proxy. This mesh will only be used to cast a shadow without being rendered. Then select all the other meshes and turn off their shadow casting. This works best if you make the shadow casting mesh manually and make sure there are no holes in it, but you can get away with using an LOD mesh most of the times. And this should wrap up this video. If you like this video, make sure to give it a like and go watch my other videos.